The promotion died on the table before I touched it. The folder slid back toward me, crooked, like it had already been handled and dismissed. The words came flat, almost bored. Not enough dedication. No pause, no follow-up. Just the expectation that I'd take it and move on. My name is Freya, 46 years old. I laughed once. A short sound. I didn't plan it. It slipped out the same way a cough does when your throat's dry. I pressed my lips together after, like that could pull it back in. The room didn't react. The chair across from me creaked as she leaned away. Already done. I asked what I was missing, not louder, not softer. Just enough to keep my voice steady. The answer didn't come. The line did. Again. Not enough dedication. Same tone, same distance. That's when it landed. Not as anger. Not yet. More like a click. This wasn't new. This wasn't decided today. This had been sitting somewhere for a while, waiting for a clean moment to be delivered. The paper was close enough that I could smell it. Printer toner. Sharp and chemical. It made my nose sting. I stared at the corner where the pages didn't line up and thought about how many times I'd fixed small things no one noticed. How many nights I'd stayed when the building emptied. How often I'd told myself to be patient, to not make it weird. She waited for me to say something else. I didn't. I felt the shift instead. She thought she was closing the conversation. I realized she'd been closing doors quietly for years. I gathered the folder and stood. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. I thanked her because that's what I've always done when I don't want to show my teeth. The chair didn't move this time. No one tried to stop me. Later, alone with the folder still open, I understood how clean the cut was. No yelling, no scene, just a line drawn and crossed. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Her Fear. It is inspired by real workplace power dynamics, but the characters, companies, and events are imagined for storytelling purposes. I folded the papers once and set them aside. Not in the trash, not yet. There was something else I needed to check before the day was over. What kind of work only matters when it's missing? I didn't think about my whole career. That would have been too easy, too dramatic. I thought about 3 moments, just 3. They kept circling back, like they'd been waiting for me to stop lying to myself. The first was a Tuesday night that turned into Wednesday morning. A shipment stalled. Big client. Real penalties if it went wrong. Everyone else had gone home. My phone kept buzzing on the desk, vibrating against a stack of invoices. I remember the hum of the old printer. Constant. Almost soothing. While I rerouted everything piece by piece, by the time the sun came up, it was fixed. No email blast. No thank you. Just a quiet handled in a status update later that morning. The second was the training. They called him a fast learner. Fresh perspective. I spent weeks walking him through systems I'd built myself. He took notes, asked smart questions. Then one afternoon, his name showed up on an internal announcement. Promotion. New title. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. He didn't look at me when he passed my desk after. I don't think that was on purpose. That almost made it worse. The third one still sits heavy. A quarterly meeting. My numbers. My fixes. My contingency plans. I watched from the side while she walked through them like they'd come to her fully formed. She didn't glance my way. I waited for a pause that never came. When it ended, people nodded at her. She smiled. I clapped with everyone else. This is the part where a braver version of me would have spoken up. Pulled her aside. Corrected the record. I didn't. I told myself it was professional. That it wasn't worth making things awkward. I know. I should have said something sooner. You don't need to tell me. Sitting there afterward. The printer still humming like it always did. I stopped calling that silence maturity. I called it what it was. Fear. What do you do when you don't feel angry just done? I sat back down at my desk and didn't open a single work file. That felt wrong enough to get my attention. My screen stayed on the same email thread I'd left open earlier. I stared at it, then minimized everything. I wasn't being rebellious. I was tired in a very specific way. The kind where reacting feels pointless. I reached for my coffee. Cold, burnt. I drank it anyway. Instead of my inbox, I opened the folder I'd been avoiding for years. Old messages, recruiters, former colleagues who'd left and tried to pull me with them. I'd ignored most of them. Some I never opened. I told myself loyalty mattered. Or timing. Or stability. Pick one. One email sat there without exclamation points or buzzwords. No urgent. No once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Just a name I recognized and 3 lines that didn't try to impress me. We've followed your work for a while. We have an opening that fits your background. If you're open to a conversation, let us know. That was it. My finger hovered over delete. Muscle memory. This is where I almost talked myself out of it. Like an idiot. I told myself it was a distraction. That I should cool off first, that I was reacting emotionally. Then I remembered the folder sliding back across the table. Crooked. Final. I didn't reply right away. I read it again. No pressure. No assumptions. Just an option sitting there, waiting to be acknowledged or ignored. For once. No one was asking me to prove anything. I leaned back and let the chair creak. The office noise kept going like nothing had happened. Phones ringing. Keys tapping. The world doing what it always does when you stop participating for a second. I didn't need permission to read an email. That thought landed heavier than it should have. I clicked reply and closed it again. Not yet, but I didn't delete it. That felt like something. What does it feel like when someone doesn't doubt you? The meeting didn't start with small talk. No one asked me to walk through my resume. No one tested my loyalty. We sat down, and the first thing on the table was a printed packet with my name on it. My work, actual projects, notes in the margins. Someone had done homework. One of them leaned forward and tapped a page. The winter reroute protocol. The contingency map I'd built after that mess 3 years back. Walk me through why you chose this instead of the standard chain, he said. I explained. Not defensively, not carefully, just the way I always explain things when something actually mattered. He nodded once and moved on. No interruption. No correction. The woman across from him flipped a page and picked up where he left off. Like this was normal. Then the number came up. 40% more. I went quiet. Not because I was calculating. Because my brain needed a second to catch up with my body. My phone started vibrating in my bag. Again and again. I didn't look. I kept my hands on the table so no one would notice they'd gone still. I asked the dumb question. The one I'd been trained to ask. What's the catch? No one laughed. No one dodged it. You're taking over a region that needs structure, she said. You'll have authority to build it. If that changes, we'll put it in writing. That was it. No speeches about culture. No warnings about proving myself. No comments about dedication. Just clarity. The room felt balanced. Like no one was leaning back, waiting for me to flinch. I wasn't pitching myself. I wasn't asking to be seen. I was being evaluated like an adult who already knew how to do the job. I swear, I kept waiting for the catch. There wasn't one. When we stood, they didn't rush me. They didn't hover either. One of them slid a card across the table and told me to take the weekend. Think it through. I nodded and slipped the card into my bag, right next to the phone that wouldn't stop buzzing. I didn't answer it on the way out. What happens when you actually leave? I sent the email first. Short, clean, no attachments. The click sound was louder than it had any right to be. It echoed in my head, sharp and final, like I'd slammed something instead of tapped a key. I stood up before I could rethink it and walked down the hall. I didn't rehearse anything. That helped. When I stepped into her office, she looked up too late. The screen in front of her stayed open. Whatever she was reading mattered more than I did. At least, it had. The letter landed on her desk, straight this time. I'd learned. Her face didn't harden. It didn't tighten. It just went blank. Like she was trying to catch up to a sentence she hadn't expected to hear. You're serious, she said. Not accusing, just confused. I nodded. That was enough. She reached for the paper, skimmed it once, then again. The chair creaked as she leaned forward now. Different posture, different tone. Suddenly there was a room to talk. We don't have to rush this. She started. There are options. We can revisit the role, adjust compensation, talk about timing. Timing. The word felt familiar in a bad way. I shook my head. Slow. On purpose? No. My voice wobbled on that single syllable. I hated that it did. I kept going anyway. She tried again. Titles. Authority. Things that apparently existed now. Things that hadn't existed last week. Each offer landed softer than the last. Like she was tossing them instead of placing them. I stopped listening for content and started listening for panic. It was there. Thin but growing. I didn't counter. I didn't ask questions. I didn't explain myself. Negotiation only works when both sides believe there's something left to negotiate. She lost control of the timeline right there. I felt it shift. Heavy. Irreversible. I thought I'd feel brave. I mostly felt sick when I turned to leave. She said my name. Not sharply. Not kindly. Just like she wanted to anchor me back in the room. I kept walking. Why do people leave all at once? The first message came before lunch. Short. Careful. A teammate letting me know they'd put in notice. No explanation. Just a heads up. Like I deserved one. The second came an hour later. Different tone. This one lingered in my inbox longer before I opened it. I'm scared. It started, mortgage, kids, the math not working. The last line landed harder than the rest. I can't keep pretending this is normal. By mid-afternoon, the third showed up. No fear in that one. Just exhaustion. I'm tired of being invisible. It read, I don't want to wake up like this anymore. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't care. Because I didn't want my words to tip anything. I didn't ask anyone to follow. I didn't even hint. That mattered to me. It still does. One person almost stayed. They came by my desk, hovered, then pulled the chair back, hands twisting together. They promised me a review. They said, again. The word hung there. Again. They left without finishing the sentence. By the end of the day, 5 resignations had gone through, 5. The building didn't change. The lights stayed on. Meetings kept happening. But something else drained out quietly. Leadership. The kind that doesn't announce itself. Slack started popping like firecrackers. Notifications stacking faster than I could clear them. Private channels. Group threads. People asking who was covering what now. Who knew how to run which process. Questions no one upstairs had answers to. Management noticed late. You could feel it in the sudden emails. The calendar holds. The forced check-ins. The scramble to look present. This part still makes me uncomfortable. Honestly, I don't like being the reason people take a leap that big. I never did. But I also couldn't ignore the pattern. They didn't leave for a title. They didn't leave for money. They left because staying had started to cost more than leaving. I shut my laptop and sat there for a minute longer than necessary, letting the noise settle. Whatever this was now, it wasn't about me anymore. Why do apologies sound different when they're scared? The phone rang while I was sorting through onboarding notes at my new desk. I let it buzz. Then a text came through. Then another call. Same number. Same rhythm. Urgent in a way that hadn't existed before. I answered on the third try and didn't say my name. Her voice came out fast. Too fast. Words stacked on top of each other like she was afraid I'd disappear mid-sentence. She talked about misunderstandings. About timing. About how things had escalated in ways no one expected. Titles came first. Then compensation. Then authority. Everything that hadn't been possible suddenly had room to breathe. I waited until she ran out of momentum. You told me dedication was the issue. I said, slow enough to feel each word land. You told me the role didn't make sense. You told me to wait. Silence. Not dropped. Held. I repeated it again. The same phrases she'd used on me, lined up neatly this time. Budget, structure, timing. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't soften it either. Her breathing filled the space between us. Quick. Uneven. She didn't interrupt. That was new. She tried to reset, talked about how valuable I was, how much the team respected me, how things could still be fixed if I'd just come in to talk. I leaned back and let the chair settle before answering. I didn't rush. I wanted her to hear that part. I'm not coming back. She started to respond, then stopped herself. I could almost picture her recalculating, realizing which levers were gone now. She needed me. That much was clear. Not because she'd changed her mind about my work, but because the absence had finally made noise. I didn't need closure. I didn't need validation. I didn't even need an apology that arrived this late. I told her I hoped they figured it out. That was true. For the people still there, not for her. When the call ended, the line went quiet in a way that felt permanent. I set the phone face down and went back to my notes, hands steadier than I expected. What breaks first when the wrong people leave? The first deadline slipped quietly. A day late. Then two. Someone messaged me from the old team. Not directly asking for help, just checking if I still remembered how a certain process worked. I didn't answer. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. The second contract didn't slip. It collapsed. A long one. Years in the making. I heard about it through a forwarded email that wasn't meant for me. The tone was tight, careful, full of phrases like unexpected disruption and temporary instability. No one wrote the real reason down. Another deal followed. Smaller, but louder. Clients don't like surprises. They like consistency. They like knowing who's actually running things. That knowledge had walked out with boxes and polite goodbyes. A report made its way around a few days later. I saw it because someone sent a screenshot with no comment attached, just the page. The number sat there in the middle like it didn't know what it meant yet. 300 million. Not projected, not hypothetical, documented. My name wasn't on it. Not once. It didn't need to be. The story shifted after that, it always does. First it was bad luck, then market pressure, then individual performance issues. I recognized the pattern. I'd helped write versions of it before, back when it was my job to make things look contained. A voicemail came in late one afternoon. I saw the preview. I didn't open it. The little indicator stayed there. Stubborn. Unread. I left it that way. This isn't the part where I celebrate. Just saying. People started reaching out in quieter ways. Old contacts. Former peers. Not asking for gossip. Asking where I landed. Asking how it felt on the other side of a decision they'd been postponing for years. I closed the report and went back to my own work. There were systems to build, deadlines to meet. The difference this time was simple. When something broke, there were names attached to it. And when something held, no one had to pretend they didn't know why. What does work feel like when you're not shrinking? I didn't try to prove anything my first week. I just built what was in front of me. One process, then another. No speeches. No grand plan pinned to a wall. Just fixing what needed fixing and leaving the rest alone. People asked before deciding. That part threw me. They'd lean in, wait, actually listen, then adjust. Not perform listening, real listening. It slowed things down at first, then it sped everything up. A client call came in on day 3. I recognized the name and felt that old clench in my stomach. I started explaining our approach. Careful, ready to defend it. I didn't have to. This makes sense. The voice said, when can we start? Another one followed, then another. No announcements, no victory laps. They just showed up quietly, like they've been waiting for a door to open somewhere else. I still braced for the drop, every morning. Like the floor might give out if I stood too confidently. Old muscle memory. Years of keeping my head down don't disappear overnight. The badge worked on the first try. A soft beep. Green light. I paused longer than necessary, just to make sure it wasn't a fluke. In meetings, I stopped over-explaining. I made calls and let them stand. When someone disagreed, it stayed professional. No undertone, no scorekeeping. We argued the work, not each other. I keep expecting to get in trouble. Old habit. One afternoon, someone new on the team pulled me aside. They'd heard about my last company, the fallout, the numbers. Was it hard to walk away, they asked. I thought about the folder, the phone calls, the report. It was harder to stay. I said. They nodded like that answered something for them. I went back to my desk and kept building. What do you do when they finally admit it? The message came through a different channel this time. Not her direct line, not a rushed voicemail. An assistant, careful language, mentions of board pressure, external audits, Words like transition and stability getting stretched until they almost sounded like apologies. They wanted a meeting, not to argue, not to negotiate, to explain, to put context around decisions that suddenly needed it. They framed it like closure, like a final professional courtesy. I didn't counter with conditions. I didn't ask what they were offering now. I didn't even respond right away. I set the phone face down on my desk and finished what I was working on. When I picked it up later, the screen was dark, quiet. That felt right. I don't feel victorious. There's no rush, no payoff moment. What I feel is settled, like something heavy finally stopped leaning on me. They're dealing with consequences now. Audits don't care about intention. Boards don't care about tone. Numbers don't soften because someone regrets how they treated the person holding everything together. Their story moved forward without me in it. That's the shift. I stopped being part of their narrative. No more explanations, no more cleanup, no more fixing what I didn't break. That's the win, I think. I still wonder sometimes if I stayed too long or left too fast. Those thoughts show up late, uninvited, when things are quiet. I let them pass. I don't chase them down anymore. I didn't burn anything down. I just stopped holding it up. And whatever collapsed after that wasn't mine to save. Here's the life lesson I'm still living with. Not preaching loyalty isn't proven by how much you endure. It's proven by where you choose to stand when endurance turns into self-erasure. Walking away isn't failure when staying would have meant disappearing.